In this video, I wanted to see if I could beat a hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokemon Black if half the types were banned. That's right, in this hardcore Nuzlocke, I used a randomizer wheel to ban half the types. That means I can only use Pokemon and moves that are on screen now. In addition to banning half the types, I'll be playing this as a hardcore Nuzlocke. Under my hardcore Nuzlocke rules, if a Pokemon faints, it's considered dead and must be released. I can also only catch the first encounter per area. The rest of the rules for this run can be seen on screen now and in the description. Without further delay then, let's jump right in and see if I can beat Pokemon Black in this recreation of my first ever video on YouTube. Right then, first things first, we've got to pick our starter, and interestingly, fire, water and grass didn't get banned, meaning I can pick Snivy, Oshawott or Tepig. Now obviously, Tepig would be the worst pick here because he evolves into a fighting type and fighting types are banned. That leaves either Snivy or Oshawott. Usually I'd be tempted to pick the grass type starter here because usually you get so many good water types in most generations of Pokemon that it's often not worth picking the water starter. However, Unova has surprisingly few water types, so Oshawott is what I decide to go for on this first attempt. Welcome aboard, Paradise. Onto our early game encounters then. Firstly, on Route 2 we can find everybody's third favourite cat Pokemon, Purloin. Now Purloin has pretty okay stats, but an awful move pool, so we'll have to wait and see how useful Nations turns out to be. She also creeps me out when she stands up. Nope, don't like that. We can then head off to the Dream Yard to grab ourselves an Elemental Monkey. And you know what the worst part about picking Oshawott is in this game? You get stuck with this turd. Really not a fan. At least Rez provides some coverage with his 30 base power move. Right, so that's our team filled out before the first gym, a creepy standing cat, a monkey with a poo on its head, and our starter. See if you can guess which is my favourite so far. Anyway, we can immediately jump into our first gym battle here, and because we picked Oshawott, we'll be battling Silent. This fight could be scary because of the workup, but I'm still pretty confident going into this. So Silent starts with Lillipup, while I start with Paradise. Lillipup immediately starts the fight by going through a workup, and then Paradise gets off a water gun that does less than half. Thankfully, Lillipup doesn't go through another workup on the following turn, but instead goes through a bite that doesn't do a lot. A second water gun brings the puppy really low, but annoyingly, before Paradise can get the KO on the following turn, Silent heals with a potion. A third water gun does bring the puppy back down to below half at the very least. Another water gun the following turn then just misses the KO and Lillipup lands another bite. The bite activates Paradise's Oranberry, which thanks to Lillipup's pickup ability also heals the Lillipup. Luckily it's not a problem though, because one last water gun takes down the persistent puppy. Second is Pansage, so I match his monkey by sending in my own. Despite going through a couple workups, Pansage really isn't a threat to Rez, so after a few incinerates, the grass monkey thaws and we win our first gym fight. Pretty easy fight all things considered, only gonna get tougher from here though. So immediately after winning our first gym battle, we get to head back to the Dream Yard to watch some animal abuse. Fun. Do you know what animal abuse puts me in the mood for? Liking the video and subscribing for more in the future. Wait, what? Now normally I wouldn't be able to catch a Munna here, as my turd monkey is my encounter for this area, but my chat convinced me I shouldn't count gift Pokemon as encounters during this run, meaning we're able to catch the pink psychic type. But eventually we do catch one, and we name our floating dream pig War. Next, heading over to Route 3, after watching Team Plasma steal a child's Pokemon, because clearly animal abuse wasn't enough to show us they're the bad guys, we catch our next encounter. We find a small electric horse, a Blitzel we name Sense. Sense, despite being really frail, is actually a really useful glass cannon, so I'm excited to see what he can do. Then after defeating Team Plasma for the second time already, I discover something useful in Wellspring Cave. Turns out, inside the dust clouds, you can find evolution stones, meaning we're able to get a moonstone and a fired stone before the second gym. Handy. This actually turns out to be a fairly large mistake, but we'll get to that later. For now, we can evolve Rez into Simisear and War into Mushana. That just leaves one more very underwhelming encounter to get. Outside Pinwheel Forest, we can catch a Timpole. Now you might be thinking, why is this underwhelming? Well, you may have forgotten I can't use ground types in this run, meaning I can never evolve this little tadpole. That means I really can't see Man ever really being used for anything other than a sack.
Later.
And that's why I'm bringing Man to the Elite Four. With our team filled out, it's time for our second gym battle of the run against the normal type trainer, Lenora. I'm a bit worried about this fight. Lenora might only have two Pokemon, but they can both hit my fairly frail team really hard, and along with Intimidate and Hypnosis, this could get ugly fast. Let's jump in then. Lenora starts with Herdia, and I start with Rez. Now Rez has been given a Flame Gem to boost his attack power, and now he's fully evolved, so I'm expecting Incinerate, even with a base power of 30, to do okay damage here. So you can imagine my shock when my Turd Monkey fails to do even half. God damn it, Rez. Luckily, the Herdia only goes through Aaliyah, so Rez doesn't have to take a hard takedown. With my monkey doing so little, and having his defense lowered, I decide to switch into Paradise. Paradise does take a takedown on the switch, but thankfully it does less than half. A single Razor Shell is then enough to KO the pup. Second for Lenora is Watchog, and I have to watch out for a really scary Retaliate here. That's where my Moonpig War comes in, who is pretty tanky, so I switch, and surprisingly, Watchog goes for Hypnosis on the switch instead of Retaliate. I'm shocked the Weasel didn't see a KO into Paradise there, but it's not a huge issue because I gave War a Chesto Berry before the fight. War then has to take a super effective crunch that actually doesn't do a huge amount. War then lands a massive Psybeam that does just over 50%. Now I'm in an interesting position because there's a chance War could KO with another Psybeam and would be risking a crit. I decide I should probably play it safe, so I switch into Nations, who takes a crunch like it's nothing, before Lenora gets a defense drop. That's annoying, but I've given Nations a Dark Gem, meaning there's no way Pursuit doesn't KO. Right, at the very least, Watchog only goes for Aaliyah in retaliation. Lenora then heals on the next turn with a Super Potion, and her second Pursuit does next to no damage. With -2 defense and Pursuit doing so little, there's no point staying in anymore, so I switch back into War and immediately get hit with a Hypnosis. I'm shocked Watchog didn't go through a takedown there, considering Nations really isn't that tanky. Oh well, might as well try for a turn to wake up War, but unfortunately my Dreaming Pig carries on dreaming and has to take another nasty crunch. With War so low, I switch back into Nations on another weak crunch. A Pursuit from Nations then brings the Weasel back to below half before Nations has to take a really hard Retaliate. Now I'm really confused because if Retaliate did that much while Nations had neutral defense, on -2 defense that would have 100% KO'd. Guess I can't complain, but I am a bit confused at why the AI didn't KO Nations earlier. I unfortunately do decide though at this point my best bet is probably to get what damage I can off with my cat before letting her go down. So I go through another Pursuit that brings Watchog into the red before Nations goes down to another Retaliate. Rest in peace, Kitty, we'll win this one for you. With Nations down, I'm able to send in Rez, who finishes off the Watchog with a single Incinerate. That's our second gym taken down, only cost us our cat. Sucks that Nations went down there, especially because there's probably other Pokemon that I could have sacrificed instead, but it was one of the safest plays I could have made, and with that, we've won our second gym badge of the run. Moving on then, we get to follow Team Plasma into Pinwheel Forest after they steal a dragon skull from a museum. I honestly think that's a step down from animal abuse and robbing a child, but I suppose you can't one-up yourself forever. Inside Pinwheel Forest then, we can find our next encounter, and we have a chance to find a Swaddle here or a Cottony. Now I can get whichever one of these two I don't find right now later on, but I'd still rather get a Cottony early, so of course I find a Swaddle. Now this bug type actually isn't bad, and being a friendship evolution, I can immediately evolve Kozak into Leavanny. We're then able to head on to Castelia City, which still feels bigger and more alive than any city Game Freak has designed in the past 10 years. We don't have a lot to actually do here though, other than pick up the Eviolite, which is a really important item. We can then head north onto Route 4, where our next encounter awaits a Darumaka we name Rome. I don't think it's much of an exaggeration to say that Darmanitan is one of the best Pokemon in this game, so he'll make an excellent addition to our party. Oh, oops. So here's the explanation. I kind of forgot to buy Great Balls, meaning it takes forever to catch the Darumaka, and in the process, we do lose War trying to catch this stupid thing. Sucks to lose War so stupidly, but we do eventually catch the Darumaka, meaning it's a worthwhile trade. With that all out the way then, we're ready to challenge the next gym leader Burgh, after messing with Team Plasma again of course. This time they've gone back to the basics of robbing children. Clearly they've completely run out of ideas after the museum heist was a bust. Maybe crime number 4 will be a bit more original. Anyway, with Team Plasma out of the way, it's time to get on with our third gym battle, and this is where I realise evolving my Turd Monkey so early might have been a mistake. Because Because I evolved Rez before the second gym, he never learnt Flame Burst and is instead stuck with Incinerate. This is going to make this fight slightly more difficult and limit Rez's usefulness going forward, but we should still have this in the bag. So Burgh starts with Whirlipede and I start with Rez. Rez is immediately able to start the fight by missing the KO with a Flame Gem boosted Incinerate. God, I hate the fact that this move has a base power of 30. I mean, really? The other two monkeys got one with 40. Whirlipede surviving though isn't a huge issue, it just means Rez has to take a laughably weak pursuit before KOing with 2 more Incinerates after Burgh heals. Next is Dwebble, so I switch into Paradise on a sand attack. A single water gem boosted Razor Shell is then enough for a one-shot. Last then for Burgh is Leavanny, who has a 4 times weakness to fire, so this should be fairly straightforward. So I switch into Rez and immediately get crit for half my monkey's HP. Okay, that was scary, but I've got complete faith in my turd monkey here, so I go through an Incinerate, and somehow, even when attacking a bug made out of leaves, Rez can't get a one-shot, for f***'s sake. I do get lucky though, and Leavanny just goes for a string shot in retaliation. Burgh then heals with a Hyper Potion before a second Incinerate crits and KOs the Leavanny. Rez must be trying to impress after he heard me chatting. Still not exactly happy with how my monkey performed during that fight, but a deathless win is a deathless win. And now we have our third gym badge of the run. Moving past Burgh and his creepy bugs, we can head further into Route 4 and eventually reach the desert resort. Inside we can find our next encounter, a Maractus we name Cradle. Like everybody else on this planet, I've never actually used a Maractus in this game, so I have no idea if they're any good or not. I'm not hopeful. Moving further north then, we eventually reach Nimbasa City, and that means more encounters. West of Nimbasa, we find everybody's favourite bin bag Pokemon, Trubbish. Rule is a really hard Pokemon to judge in terms of how useful it is. It's got the stats of a tank, yet has an ability which makes it incapable of being a tank. It also has an okay attack stat, yet not one good physical stab move. That begs the question then, what is the point of this thing? If I ever work that out, I'll let you guys know. This time heading east of Nimbasa City then, we can find another encounter who is slightly more useful, a Gothita I named Sentry. Sentry is pretty useful as a strong psychic type, it's just a shame I don't want to look at it. We then get one more encounter before the next gym, a Cottony I name Emperor. I love these things, so I'm excited to finally add one to my team. After a quick awkward Ferris wheel ride with N, we're then ready to head through our next gym fight against Elisa and her electric types. I always struggle with this gym, and with no rock or ground moves, this is going to be difficult. I do have a bit of the plan though, so let's see how this goes. Elisa starts with Emolga, and I start with Sense. I immediately start the fight with a gem boosted Spark that very nearly one-shots and gets the paralysis. Great start. Elisa then fully heals with a Hyper Potion before a second Spark brings the Flying Rat back to 50%. Much to my surprise, Elisa then hard switches into Zeb Striker, meaning I accidentally give the Spiky Horse a special attack increase because of Lightning Rod. Now, I really don't understand why the AI did that. Elisa should have gone through a Volt Switch there. Very confusing. Nothing I can do though but carry on, so I start back and forth with the Zeb Striker as we both start going for flame charges. My own horse is able to win this back and forth thanks to some defense EVs, but all that means is that Sense is able to survive long enough for Elisa to heal her Zeb Striker with another potion. I've still got enough HP to get off one more flame charge here, but then Sense is brought low enough to where I need to switch. I decide on Roam as he'll resist the flame charge on the switch and then be able to get off good damage. On the switch though, Zeb Striker goes for a Spark, doing decent damage. Okay, now I'm even more confused, and I call bull on that. Zeb Striker has been going for flame charge this whole fight, yet the second I switch, it goes for a Spark. I'm so confused. Thankfully, it didn't do too much. Roam then has to take a second strong Spark before hitting back with a Fire Punch that just misses the KO, leaving Zeb Striker on what looks like 1 HP. My luck this fight has been unreal. Much to my relief though, I am able to send Sense in on one more Spark, take a quick attack, and then finish off the Spiky Ace with a final flame charge. Right, that's one down, now just to deal with the flying rats. I decide to take a bit of the risk and stay in with Sense because of Pursuit. My gamble pays off because Emolga does go through a Pursuit that would have done a huge amount of damage had I switched. Sense is then able to get off 2 sparks for the KO. Perfect. It's then a simple case of going for 1 more spark on the half health Emolga to take it down and win us the victory. I have no idea what was going on with the AI during that fight, but we won, so that's what matters. 4th gym badge acquired. Our next destination then is Driftvale City, and we only have 2 more encounters before we have to challenge the run ender that is Clay. Firstly, heading past Driftvale and its very catchy music, we make our way onto Route 6 and catch ourselves a Thungus. Thungus was vital for me winning this run a year ago, so north will be just as useful as last time. Then heading south from Driftvale into the cold storage, I catch myself an ice cream cone I name Leviathan. Leviathan is going to be a great counter to a lot of scary dragons coming up, so he's a welcome find. That's actually all the encounters we get before our 5th gym battle, so after dealing with whatever the hell this is, we arrive at our next gym challenge. Now obviously, Clay's Extra Drill is a huge run ender, but I've got a decent amount of options to handle it, so this should be fine. Let's jump right in. Clay starts with Krokorok, and I start with Kozak. Kozak is able to one-shot the Croc with a single bug bite. Easy. Second is the Scary Mole, so I switch into Paradise on a Bulldoze that lowers my speed. Scarily, Extra Drill then sets up a Hone Claws, but a single Water Pulse is able to bring the Extra Drill to below half. Okay, we should be in the clear here. Barring any bad luck, 1 more attack should get us the KO, so Extra Drill goes for a Rock Slide and of course gets the flinch. Okay, that's bad, but we're still in this. There's a good chance that Paradise could survive another hit here, but I don't want to risk a crit. I decide it's best to try and get Emperor in for 3, so unfortunately that means switching through Man. Man of course isn't surviving a hit here, so at least his death is serving a purpose. Rest in peace Man. With Man down, I'm able to send in Emperor for 3. And with Extra Drill on such low HP, I'm in a pretty good spot, so I immediately go through a Giga Drain that annoyingly just puts Extra Drill into range where Clay heals on the next turn. That's annoying, but with Giga Drains, I should be able to keep Emperor healthy enough to bring the Extra Drill really low, and of course I immediately get flinched again. I should still be okay here, as long as I can just get a little bit more damage off with Giga Drain, and I get flinched for a 3rd time. What the fuck, Extra Drill, can you stop? That's really bad, but we can still pull off a win here. I decide to sacrifice Cradle to get Kozak in for 3. I guess we'll never know if Maractus is actually useful. Rest in peace, buddy. Okay, with Kozak now in at least, I should be in the clear to KO this stupid mole, so I go through a Grass Gem boosted Razor Leaf and forgot to equip the Grass Gem, meaning Extra Drill survives and KOs Kozak. Okay, that mistake might have just cost me the run, but there's still a little bit of hope here. With Emperor and Paradise, there's a very slim chance I'm able to take down this monster, so I send in Emperor and go through a Giga Drain as Clay heals with a 2nd Hyper Potion. A 2nd Giga Drain then brings the Extra Drill to 50% as Bulldoze hits Emperor, very nearly KOing my Grass Cloud. I'm running out of options here, so I decide it's best to let Emperor go down to give Paradise the best possible chance of KOing the overgrown mole. Rest in peace, Emperor. This run now lives or dies on how fast this Extra Drill is. According to my calculations, I don't use damage calculators often, but this calls for it. With 252 speed EVs, Paradise should outspeed here, but he's only a couple of points faster, so if I've done my calculations wrong or Extra Drill has a plus speed nature, this run is over, so I click Water Pulse and hold my breath, and Extra Drill outspeeds, KOing Paradise with a Bulldoze. It's all over then. Rome comes in, but can't stand up to the overly large mole, meaning attempt 1 is now over. That really came down to the wire. Had I given my Pokemon some different items, or gotten slightly more lucky with Rock Slide flinches, we would have been able to win. Losses happened though, and we gave it our all, so all we can do now is head on to attempt 2. So attempt 2 goes basically the same as attempt 1 until the 2nd gym battle, where there are a couple of differences. Firstly, I don't evolve Rez early, meaning he'll learn a move that has more than 30 base power eventually and actually be useful. Then, thanks to some luck with Psybeam Confusion, we're able to win the 2nd gym battle completely deathless. We're also able to catch Darumaka without losing anyone this time because I remember to buy Great Balls. Thanks to these changes, we're able to make it back to Clay completely deathless. Let's hope this goes better than last time. So we start the fight in the exact same way, one-shotting the Krokorok before it's able to move. Now the run ender extra drill comes out, and instead of switching into Paradise, this time I decide to stay in. Mare should be able to survive one hit here, and if she doesn't, it's not the end of the world because Paradise can then come in for 3. So I stay in and get off a gem boosted Razor Leaf that does huge damage before surviving a scary rock slide. I then switch into Paradise on a second rock slide that doesn't do a huge amount. Unlike attempt 1, this time I've given Paradise a water gem and Paradise hasn't been slowed down by a bulldoze. This means a single water pulse is enough to finish off the overgrown mole. All that's left then for Clay at this point is Palputoad, who goes down to a 4 times effective Giga Drain from Emperor. That seems so easy, it's a wonder I lost the first time. Oh well, every loss is clearly a learning experience, and with Clay defeated we can carry on with a 5th gym badge under our belt. Moving on from Driftveil then, we can head north to Chargestone Cave, where our next encounter awaits. There's 2 electric types I can get here, an Electros, which would be the better of the 2, as they have no weaknesses, but this electric eel has a 1% encounter chance, so that was never going to happen. Instead I found a Joltik I name Origin. I've never used one of these things before, but Bug Electric is a pretty unique typing, so I'm excited to find out what she can do. That's actually the only encounter I get before the next gym. Now, I could pretend that this gym is in any way challenging, but instead I'm going to do the opposite and click Spark 4 times and sweep the whole thing with 1 Pokemon. I don't really understand why all the gym leaders in this game are limited to 3 Pokemon, but it really makes the later half of this game, up until the Elite Four, kind of the joke. 6th gym badge acquired, I guess. We then got a bit of the trek to Icarus City, and on the way inside Twist Mountain, we can find another encounter, a Cubchoo I name Mare. Now Mare serves as more of the backup ice type than anything, just in case something tragic happens to my ice cream cone, but that's not exactly a bad thing. Another ice type is always useful. That's actually the only noteworthy thing that happens before Icarus City and our next gym then. Now remember after our last gym fight, I said the latter half of this game is a bit of the joke? Well, I beat Skylar with 1 Pokemon in 4 moves, and I break my record this time around. I'm able to defeat the Ice-type gym leader in 3 moves with Roam. That was ridiculously easy. 1 more badge to go. Now, we're making pretty quick progress here, but unfortunately the game decides to throw a curveball my way that's really going to slow things down. That's right, the thing any PokeTuber fears above all else, excessive amounts of dialogue. Eventually, after what feels like an eternity, I do escape Game Freak's attempt at telling a story, and that means we're at our final gym fight of the run. Now, you might be expecting this to be more difficult than the last 2 gyms. Drayden's team is full of scary dragon types that could easily set up with Dragon Dance and end this run. I've got to come up with a pretty big brain plan here if I want any chance of beating this, right? Well, I just kind of click Ice Beam 3 times. What a joke. That's our last gym badge acquired, meaning we're nearly at the end of this run. Just the Elite Four and Double Champion fight to go, and I've got a plan to make this a bit more interesting. So we make it through Victory Road with no issues, and then we arrive at the Pokemon League. Now normally this is the part where I tell you what team I was building, and well, I've had 0 deaths during attempt 2, and the last 3 gym fights have been a complete joke, so let's spice it up a bit. Get it? Anyway. Before this run started, I used a wheel randomizer to select 9 types I was allowed to use, so I've decided to put my fate in the hands of the wheel once again. That's right, I've put every single one of the Pokemon I've caught so far on the wheel, and the first 6 that it lands on are what I'm taking to the Elite Four. This could go horribly wrong, yes, so let's do this. First up on our wheel is Nations the Lipard. Nations probably wouldn't have been my first choice for an Elite Four Pokemon, but his dark typing is really useful here, so I'm not actually going to complain. Second is Roam the Darmanitan, who would have probably been my first choice. Roam is one of the best Pokemon I have, so I'm super excited to bring him along. Third is the complete opposite end of the scale, as we land on Man the Timpole. I have no clue where this thing is going to be useful other than a sack, but maybe with an Eviolite and EVs, he can survive a couple of hits and be useful? Maybe, probably not. Fourth is Origin the Galvantula, who is a super speedy special attacker who provides some unique coverage going into this Elite Four. Fifth is everybody's least useful bag of rubbish, Rule the Garbodor, and I'm gonna have to try and find a use for this thing, but for now I have no idea how Rule is going to be any help whatsoever. That just leaves our last Pokemon we'll be bringing to this Elite Four, and of course we get the top of the poo pile himself, our turd Bird Monkey Res. Not sure if I need another fire type, but at least he's half decent. That's it then. 2 awful Pokemon, 3 middling Pokemon, and 1 OP monster versus this Elite Four. Think we've got what it takes with this completely random team? Let's go find out. Oh, and remember to like this video if you've enjoyed, and subscribe for more in the future. Let's go end this. First up for this Elite Four is Chantel and her ghost types. Now, Chantel can be fairly tricky unless you've got the right tools to take her down, and luckily I've got just that in Nations. So Chantel starts with Kothagrigus, and I start with Nations. I immediately start by going through a taunt to stop the Ghost Cothin, landing a Will-O-Wisp. Perfect. From there I can set up a single Hone Claws, as Kothagrigus can only do low damage with a Shadow Ball. Nations is then able to completely sweep Chantel with Night Slashes, one-shotting every single one of her Pokemon. Nice start to this Elite Four. Up next is Grimsley, who unfortunately is going to be slightly more tricky to deal with compared to his counterpart Chantel. I do have Origins, but unfortunately her super effective bug moves are resisted by half of Grimsley's team, so this isn't going to be a straight sweep. Still got a plan though, so let's see how this goes. Grimsley starts with Scrafty, and I start with Res. I start the fight by landing a Will-O-Wisp, making Scrafty a lot less scary. Scrafty only lands a sand attack in retaliation. I decide I don't really want to play around having my accuracy lowered, so I switch into Origin and immediately get more sand thrown in my face. That's annoying, but I just have to switch into Man to get rid of the accuracy drop, and I get more sand. Okay, I'm gonna stop playing around the stupid sand attacks here, because that's the only thing this Scrafty seems to be doing. In all honesty, wasting turns like this isn't a bad idea, because burn damage is starting to stack up. I switch back into Origin, and guess what? More sand. Origin does have Compound Eyes though, and that helps my big zappy bug land a Thunderbolt that crits and KOs Scrafty. Don't think I needed a crit there, but not gonna complain. Second is Crocodile, so a single Signal Beam is enough for a one-shot. Third is Bishop, so I switch into Roam on a stupidly hard Night Slash. Roam survives though, and is able to one-shot with a Fire Punch. A crit could have been bad there, but Grimsley is down to his last Pokemon, his own kiddie, Lipard. Lipard isn't an issue though, because after hitting Origin hard with a Night Slash on the switch, a single Signal Beam is enough for another KO. 2 members of this Elite Four down, 2 more to go. Up next to this Elite Four is Caitlyn, who I find super relatable. Like, if my office could have a giant bed in it that I could nap in whenever, I'd so be down. Despite the fact that Caitlyn is the most relatable member of this Elite Four, she's still not very difficult, as Nations is able to sweep her entire team even without a Hone Claws boost. There was a super scary moment where my kitty had to take a hard Air Slash, but other than that, it's a straight sweep. That means the only thing left standing between us and the champion is Marshall. Marshall is always the most difficult member of this Elite Four. Marshall and his fighting types are difficult at the best of times, but with no psychic or flying type coverage on my team, and half my team being weak to his rock attacks or his fighting moves, this could be a nightmare. We've made it this far though, so fingers crossed this goes well. Marshall starts with Throw, and I start with Rule. I start the fight by setting up a layer of Toxic Spikes before being hit by a super effective Bulldoze. Rule takes the hit really well though, but does have his defense lowered thanks to his ability. Gotta love a tank that gets weaker every time he gets hit. Thankfully, I'm still able to set up another layer of Toxic Spikes and then survive another Bulldoze. With Rule so low and having his defenses lowered twice, he's not going to survive another hit, so I decide to switch into Man, who takes a Bulldoze surprisingly well on the switch. Eviolite and Eevee's working overtime there. Man then tanks a Stone Edge before landing a Toxic. Perfect. I was then hoping to stall through a bit longer, as Stone Edge has a really low accuracy, and if it had missed a couple times that would have been ideal, but unfortunately it doesn't, meaning Man goes down after setting up an Aqua Ring. Rest in peace Man, you didn't do a lot, but landing that Toxic was really important. With Man down, I'm able to send in Origin, who finishes off the overgrown Sesame Street character with a Thunderbolt. Second is Swark, who immediately gets poisoned. I don't want my bug to take a Stone Edge here, so I switch into Nations, who tanks the hit but still takes a lot of damage. I've got a pretty high chance of Swark not going through a Stone Edge on the switch here, as it probably sees the KO with any of its moves. So I send Origins back in, and I do get lucky as the blue Sesame Street character goes through a Karate Chop, even if it does crit. Can't win them all, I suppose. Origins is then able to take down the second of Marshall's Pokemon with another Thunderbolt. Third is Conkeldurr, so I switch into Rule. I'm fully expecting Rule to go down here, but somehow she survives on 5 HP. That's brilliant, not because Rule is going to get through this fight, but because it means she can get even more damage off into the Conkeldurr with a Sludge Bomb before going going down. That guarantees that when Rome comes in, he can finish off the stupid looking muscle clown with a single fire punch. Last, the Marshal is Minincho, who goes down to a single flare blitz. We've done it, Marshal and the Elite Four are down, and it only took 2 of my trash Pokemon to make it happen. Now we've just got N and Ghetsis to deal with, and I've decided once again to let the wheel replace my 2 fallen team members. Let's see who we're getting. First up is Emperor, the Whimsicott, who provides some vital coverage going into these last 2 fights, and is a pretty great support Pokemon. Our second addition to our final team is Mare, the Beartic, who wouldn't have been my first choice for an ice type, but he should still prove pretty useful. Let's go end this. So N starts with his legendary dragon Zekrom, and I start with Emperor. You might question why I didn't start with Mare, and well, I don't think Mare would survive long enough to KO, so I'm fairly sure Emperor is a safer choice. So I start the fight with a priority Leech Seed, while Zekrom hits us with a stupidly weak Fusion Bolt. I then land a Poison Powder, meaning I just have to spend 45 minutes stalling out Zekrom. Easy. Second for N is his own Ice Cream, so I switch into Roam on a weak Blizzard. A single Fire Punch is then enough for an easy one-shot. Third is Caracosta, so I switch into Emperor on an Aqua Jet. It takes a couple of turns of Giga Drains thanks to Sturdy and end spamming Thor restores, but eventually the overgrown turtle falls. Fourth is Clink Clang, and I'm fairly sure this is just actually Zoroark who has Flamethrower. Because of this I switch into Roam, and I'm correct, meaning a Fire Punch is able to KO the Clink on the following turn. Fifth is Archeops, and this bird presents some problems to my team. I really don't want my Pokemon to be taking any strong rock or flying type moves here, so Nations is the only one who can take neutral damage here, but he's also quite frail, so this is a bit of the risk. I switch him in and pray he takes the hit well, and Stone Edge misses. That's huge, because now I can bring the Archeops down to below half health, activating Defeatist before taking a single hit. Perfect. A second Night Slash, then picks up another KO. That just leaves the real Clink, so I switch into Res on a hard Thunderbolt before outspeeding, and oh no, I really didn't expect to be outsped there. That's totally on me. Rest in peace, Res. You might have been a turd monkey, but you deserve better. If nothing else, I'm able to send in Roam, who does take down the Clink with a Fire Punch. Let's end down, and we did lose our turd monkey, but I'm still confident we should be able to take down Ghetsis here, so let's go win this run. So first up for Ghetsis is Kothagrigus, and I start with Emperor, as I can't change up my team from last fight. This is annoying because it means there's no way to avoid a Toxic when I switch into Nations. Kothagrigus then starts going through Protect, but that's not really a problem because it lets Nations set up a Home Claws. Surprisingly, even with a Home Claws boost though, Nations then fails to KO the floating Coffin, meaning he has to take a Shadow Ball. Ghetsis then heals on the following turn, but I get super lucky as Nation gets a crit, one-shotting the stupid Ghost. Nations is a bro. Up next is Hydreigon, and unfortunately, I really need to get Origins in safely here, so I decide to let Nations go down to a Surf. Rest in peace, Nations. For all that I gave you at the start of this run, you really held your own. With Nations down though, I am able to send in Origins, who one-shots with a Signal Beam. Oh no, I'm really not sure how Hydreigon survived that. He wasn't even on full HP. Unfortunately, it does mean Ghetsis' scary dragon survives and nails my bug with a Fire Blast. Rest in peace, Origins. That was horse. Luckily, Roam is able to come in and finish off the stupid dragon with a Fire Punch. Third for Ghetsis is Bouthalon, who goes down to a single Flare Blitz from Roam. Fourth is Seismitoad, so I'm easily able to switch into Emperor, who takes a 4 times effective Giga Drain. How did that not KO, despite that being a second Giga Drain is able to take down the Toad? I just have to assume Ghetsis is cheating at this point. He's running out of Pokemon to cheat with though, as fifth for Ghetsis is Electros. Electros does threaten with Flamethrower, but thanks to Giga Drain keeping Emperor healthy, after many Giga Drains, the Electric Eel does eventually fall. That just leaves one more Pokemon for Ghetsis. This is pretty much over at this point. All it takes is one more sacrifice. I let Emperor go down to an X-Scissor. Rest in peace, buddy. Your sacrifice will give us the win, as I can now send in Roam for the final time, who KOs with one last Fire Punch. We've done it. We've beaten Pokemon Black with half the types banned. What a strange run. The early game was extremely difficult, but once we reached the midpoint of the run after Clay, we flew through the game until the Elite Four and Champion. It was a pretty fun run to play though, and it was nice to recreate one of my first videos now that I have a bit more idea of what I'm doing when it comes to content creation. If there's any other challenges of mine that you'd like to see me redo, maybe a video where I lost, let me know in the comments below. That's all from me then. If you made it this far, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.